You have to operate in that micro short-term game every day, because what we're doing right now, this is a day-by-day grind. This isn't easy. Things don't happen overnight. You have to live within micro. You have to play that short game. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind the long game. The Perspective Podcast is fuel for your mind and creative grind. Each week, my guests and I provide the skills for thinking bigger, overcoming adversity, and making an impact with your work. What's going on? You're listening to episode 121 of the Perspective Podcast. My name is Scotty.D.Russell of Perspective Collective, and I'm here to help you build a killer side hustle and elevate your brand outside your day job. And at the end of each episode, I plug a listener of the week, so stick around to figure out how you can get a shout out on a future episode in the show notes, as well as in the newsletter. So today, I got a quick and punchy solo episode for you that's inspired by some toxic things I've seen within our community. The goal today isn't to call anyone out. I'm really not about that life, but it's more just to address the overall issue and to propose a new perspective or lens of which we can see competition through, and how we can put our gifts towards the greater good, put our skills and our talents towards a greater purpose. And that's why today's episode is titled, It's Bigger Than You, Create for Impact, and See the Bigger Picture. I'm going to start this off with a quote from Aristotle, and he states, "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts." And this whole first section is basically about using competition to your advantage. And for me, us as a creative community, I feel we can accomplish some incredible things when we teach what we know, we collaborate, and we encourage each other rather than bullying, undermining, or tear people down, especially in the world of design Twitter, if you know what I'm talking about there. And I'm not one to say copying's great. In fact, go back to episode 104 is Don't Die a Creative Copycat. And I really give a strong stance on my position on people who are writing someone else's ways, they're stealing someone else's ways rather than making their own ways in life. But at the end of the day, you can never claim that you're a true OG of a specific style or medium because someone has done this way before you. In the book, Austin Klingon, somewhere over here, Steal Like an Artist, there's no new idea under the sun. It's basically you're trying to take someone else's wave that they created and put your own unique spin and twist on it yourself. And stop acting like you own something. At the end of the day, don't send your mob of people to go attack someone. Instead, use competition as your advantage. Use it to fuel and motivate you to constantly step up and evolve your game to the next level. And doing this not only raises the bar, but it pushes our whole industry as a whole. So again, if people are biting and ripping off your style, yes, I'm not condoning that. But at the same time, focus on what you can control and use that as fuel and motivation to push your shit to the next level. And in my mind, there's enough room for all of us at the table to eat and thrive, to have a seat. And that's the beauty of this all, okay? And that's why I believe so much in our community. So the second part is all about taking a step back and seeing the bigger picture. And first off, I want to approach this from a micro versus a macro perspective and talk about the good and bad with each segment, as well as why we need to operate within both. So first up, the micro. And living within the micro perspective each day, the good part about it is that when you focus on the micro, that means you can focus on yourself. You can focus on your overall well-being, mental health, physical health, spiritual health. And in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to the macro vision, I'll talk about why focusing on you first is so important, because I've learned, from hard lessons that I can't make anyone else happy when I'm not happy. And I'm not able to show up and love and help other people if I don't know how to love and embrace myself. And another good thing about living and operating within the micro is it's good in living in the moment. And so many of us, including myself, this is really, really hard. And this dummies up on it too. It's good to live in the micro and celebrate all types of wins, whether they're big or small. So that's the beauty of the micro, of living the good parts of living in the micro. But things can get bad when you start getting too obsessed with the micro in this stance of when you feel like you're the center of the universe. The world revolves around you. You're the only one in life that has these specific problems going on right now. And living within these terms of micro, they can really hold you back from becoming the person you want to be or making an impact on other people, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And let's shift from the micro to the macro perspective when you take a step back. So it's good Living in the macro is understanding you're just a speck of dust in an infinite universe. Right? You're small compared to what's really going on in the world and in life in general. And another good thing about living within the macro or understanding the macro is, it gives you perspective, or it lets you have empathy, so you're able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And if you're able to do that, that just opens you bigger to understand, like, there's a lot more going on than just your little bubble of life. And what else is good about it is when you live in the micro and you take care of yourself, eventually in the macro, you realize that by you taking care of yourself, you can now help and provide value to other people, help other people have a more fruitful life full of fulfillment. But the bad thing about being too obsessed or too, let's say, locked into the macro perspective is that you're too worried about trying to help everyone else and you lose sight of taking care of yourself. And I've done this before. My health has gone to shit. My relationships have gone to shit because I cared too much about helping other people that I lost sight of myself. Another one is that, focus on the macro. Maybe you're too focused on this bigger picture of a task or a deadline or a project or a goal that you feel so paralyzed by this end result that's just massive that you lose sight of how to take action in the short term, the micro. And that's, the beauty of the macro and the micro together. They go in hand. But for example, let me talk about this for example. Maybe this will illustrate my point. So macro and micro, say I'm working on a mural and I'm too over obsessed on these details. I'm really up close on this wall. Maybe it's like an 8-foot, 10-foot mural width. And I'm just locked in on the details. Maybe these lines aren't so straight. Maybe my line work isn't looking the crispest. But when I step back, I realize, wow, the sum of this greater parts equals the whole. And all these little bits that I'm working on that I'm stressing out about, like these lines, the edges, things aren't looking nice as they should and refined as I normally would. I'd be do it by hand on a piece of paper or something. But when I step back, I'm like, damn, the bigger picture of everything, this is looking super dope. This is looking incredible. And people aren't going to be up there an inch away to notice, where my blemishes are. They're going to see it from the macro perspective. So what I mean in here, you got to be up in that mural from the micro perspective and work on all the different parts of the pieces. But then when you take that step back, you can really see the bigger picture. Next, this is also ties into the micro and macro, but the short game versus the long game. And you need both of them. You have to operate in that micro short-term game every day, because what we're doing right now, this is a day-by-day grind. This isn't easy. Things don't happen overnight. You have to live within micro. You have to play that short game. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind the long game. And that's where having a vision or having goals that can guide you and direct that internal compass to what you want in life. But those goals in the long game has a picture for you to work towards, but you need to work and play that short game in order to get to the long game. So the micro and the macro go hand in hand. The short game versus the long game, they're all live within each other. They have to go with each other. So I hope that breaks it down. Don't be too obsessed by one and the other. Just realize they flow together. And the most important part of my message of what I'm trying to get today is, hold yourself accountable to create for impact. And again, this whole episode topic is things I believe in. It's what I strongly believe in. It doesn't mean it's for everyone, but I truly believe we're here to create for something much bigger than ourselves. And for me, my goal is to create waves that have a long-lasting ripple effect far after my finite time on this planet expires. And for me, impact for me is anything that allows someone like you who's listening or watching the show right now, my words, my message, my voice, my art, if it's allowed you to tap into your potential gift that you can then use in turn to make an impact on others. So impact for me is helping others see their potential, which allows them to then use their gift to make impact on others, if I'm to sum that up. And I admit, chasing the glory and the praise gives you a pretty wicked high. It's fucking incredible. But at the same time, though, it can become toxic and hella exhausting. And back in October 2018, I attended Summit of Greatness, Lewis Howe's Summit of Greatness, and I had this shift within me, this mental paradigm shift, where instead of chasing the glory, I'm out chasing the impact right now. And the impact that I make far outweighs those likes, those comments, those retweets, those shares, those new gaggle of new followers on my Instagram page. Like, it's for the impact. And what's so dope for me, what makes me feel most alive and most fulfilled, is when I get just a random DM of someone who listened to the podcast and this podcast helped them rekindle their love for drawing again, and they just hit publish for the first time and sharing their work with the world. And for me, that's incredible. For me, that's impact, and that's hard to top. That's what I want to go to my deathbed knowing that I made an impact, and I love that feeling. That's what keeps me fired and inspired. And here are a few scenarios, for you. If I was to ask you to, play the micro short-term game, but at the same time, how can you think of the long-term macro position of how your work can create an impact? So let me read off these 3 scenarios real quick, and maybe it's something you can noodle on. So if you're an inspiring artist, how can the work that you create add a little pep in someone's step who happens to browse upon your Instagram profile? The second one, if you're a freelancer, how can you work towards a future of freelance where the brands you work with are making an impact for the greater good? And maybe an example of this is for creating work for like charities or nonprofits. And finally, maybe you're a brand and somehow you're listening to this. How can you create campaigns and collaborate with influencers or individuals that speak out against worldly issues, something like social injustice or racism? And the first thing that comes to my mind is Nike with their campaign for Colin Kaepernick. That's a controversial topic, but I stand with Kaepernick kneeling. I think he's speaking out for the greater good of things. He's making an impact. He's making something way bigger than football right now. He's changing lives. In other ways that I feel like you can make an impact and build community, let me read this list off real quick, is you can collaborate with each other all across the world. Encourage your peers, encourage anybody online that is doing something different or unique, or just you could tell that one little word of encouragement can really push their game and work to the next level. Teach what you know. Be open in sharing your knowledge. I admit there's sometimes maybe it's a little hard, especially if it's your pricing models or your clients or something like that, where you're in jeopardy of losing this to someone else. I get it. There's a fine line between things, but overall, I believe the more we're open to sharing our knowledge freely and teaching other people what we know, the more the universe is going to provide karma and bring back good things our way, more opportunities. So other ways is buy your friends shit. Support your friends, support artists you look up to, support people that inspire you, stick up for each other, and call out people's bullshit and stand up for something using your voice. But overall, the message that I'm trying to drive home today is just be a small part of something much bigger than yourself. And I'm learning that life is pretty rad when you're surrounded by people who are aligned to your beliefs and they have your back. And creating for impact takes one person at a time, and anyone can do it. It doesn't matter if you have the largest audience, the smallest audience, the best resume to contribute to the bigger cause. It doesn't matter. You can have 5 followers, 5,000, 500,000. No matter what, it just takes one person at a time and you showing up to create something that's much bigger than yourself. And by all means, you are important. I want to stress it again. You are so important. At the same time, you're the most important thing, but you're not the most important thing. But you have to take care of your well-being. You have to be a great examples for others to do the same. And by you being a great example and taking care of yourself, others are going to want to do that as well. But at the end of the day, it's bigger than you in the grand scheme of life. And be a small part of something that's much bigger than yourself and just contribute to the overall greater good, especially with this creative community. So PC family, there you have it. Another short, fiery, punchy episode to the gut and the heart. This is something I truly believe in. Again, this is my perspective and my opinion on the overall matter. See competition in a different light, okay? Use it to your advantage and put your effort and energy into creating for impact or something that's much bigger than yourself, while still creating work that you think is dope, that you enjoy, that other people can enjoy as well. But I think you can all push to that next level to really raise our community as a whole and push our industry forward. So if you found value in what you hear today, please do what you do best. Take a screenshot of you listening to this episode, or take a video of you working with this going on in the background and share it with me over on Instagram stories. That way we can connect, and I will reshare the love, especially the ones of you working to it in the background. I'll reshare it and get your work on get some extra eyes on your work when I share it. And if you're finding value in just the podcast in general and it's helped you within your creative grind, there are 2 ways that you can give back. And the first way is by supporting the show financially over at patreon.com/perspectivepodcast. And the second way is by subscribing and leaving a rating and review over in Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Not only does it help the show climb up the charts in the arts design category, but it also allows me to give you some public love as the listener of the week, as this week's listener of the week is Manji from Egypt. And this is a little bit longer one, so I'm going to paraphrase some of it. They state, I'm a graphic designer from Egypt. I've only known about this podcast since only 2 or 3 months ago, and ever since then, I've never stopped listening. Wednesday became my favorite day of the week as a new episode came out. Besides giving great advices, interviewing designers with amazing talents, making me motivated and wanting to eat pizza after each episode. Scotty speaks in a very authentic way that anyone I've listened to before. At the same time, he brings value in a very short time, and it really gets me every time. That you can truly feel in his voice the pure intention of really wanting to make anyone listening feel better, motivated, energized, and ready to achieve their goal. Fast forward a little bit. So Scotty, thank you for being authentic. Thank you for helping designers around the world feel better and more motivated. That's a longer one, and I sincerely appreciate that one. Was heartfelt. And if you want to leave one and become listener of the week, don't feel like you have to leave a long one like that. Don't feel the pressure of that. It could be short and sweet as possible, or you can go all out leaving that one too. Whatever you do, it's much appreciated, and I appreciate it more than you could ever know. And finally, as I wrap things up, I got to give a huge thank you to my executive assistant, Paige Garland, my video specialist, Colton Bacher, and all the dope theme music provided to me by Nick Jenkins of Bluka. I appreciate all 3 of you. You are the glue that makes this happen. And as you finish off your week strong, I want to encourage you to keep showing up, keep putting the work, and keep creating. You got this. Thanks again for listening. It'd be awesome if you took the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let the comment below so we can connect. Again, if you want to catch a shout out as a future listener of the week, make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes and give it a rating and review.